but Facebook will take a sec. Okay, and going live on Facebook.
Hello, everybody on YouTube, first of all.
Yeah. There we go. And Facebook is live, so...
Well, isn't this fun?
Yeah.
My goodness. Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, everybody. Unexplained and Uncensored.
Unexplained Uncensored. So, I'm going to say it right out of the gate. Shit.
There we go.
Because our show is really... Supernatural Circumstances is really super clean. I don't think we've ever had a curse word on Supernatural Circumstances.
You broke new ground just now.
I broke new ground just now, and I said the word shit. And oh my gosh, I said it again. So...
and, by the way, if you have not subscribed to Supernatural Circumstances, the podcast, that's what we do normally on Apple and Spotify and Audible. And we have some of the, I think, some of the best guests in the world come on to talk about the paranormal and parapsychology.
Right.
So
we're still trying to figure out, we were just talking before we came on here. We're still trying to figure out what it is that we're doing. You know, we want to figure out where we fit and what it is that we want to do with the show, because we think we have some good ideas. We're just curious. So we're open to feedback. We're not going to say, oh, you should paint your toenails purple and dye your mustache blue. That's probably not going to happen. But
well, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to dye your mustache blue? I don't think you have a mustache.
No, I was thinking if you didn't do it, that was my expectation. That was my false expectation.
So we have an opening that I just sort of walked all over that you wanted to do with this. So let's get that done.
Oh, we don't have to. We're not, super clinical here, but
okay.
But I was just saying, if people that are new to this and that are new to myself and you, if you guys have not subscribed to Supernatural Circumstances podcast, it is on Apple, Spotify, anywhere that you guys get your podcasts, and we have some of the best guests I think on the planet. They're fantastic, and
right,
yeah, and like you were saying, we talk about also everything from consciousness to overarching, really consciousness and spirituality, and it blends into everything else that we.
Right, and we're gonna have some more great guests, and we're working on others. So, looks like Sherry Barbie says, I'm naughty for having said shit. Oh, shit. I said it again. Oh, shit again. Oh, shit.
Damn it, Mike.
Oops. Yeah, YouTube's probably going to censor us now because Mike is foul mouth.
If we get thrown off, is 100%, it's all him.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But, so we've got some listener questions. And I have some questions for Morgan because, everybody who listens to Dark Poutine knows me, and they've listened to me blather for 7 years, a long time, a long time. It'll be 7 years this October. So I'll give a little primer for the paranormal folks who don't know me. Morgan can ask me some questions about myself. Nothing personal. Not too personal, but
this off
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, as far as the show goes, as far as Supernatural Circumstances goes, who has been your favorite guest, Morgan? Your absolute favorite guest?
God, it's so hard. I don't know. I mean, I love the people. I don't know if I can pick just one, but I love the people that
it's a hard question. Yeah,
it's a hard question, but I love the people who can take the subject matter into a new space that I have never heard of, like the aha moments of what we do, like when we're having a conversation and because we always beforehand we read their books and we write down all the questions that we think that we want to ask, but as well as what we think other people are going to want to know. And I love it when we get those people that just take it up that notch where I get goosebumps, because I don't get goosebumps very much anymore. I've been in this for over 20 years. I don't get goosebumps very much, but we've had people on that have absolutely given me those goosebumps. And
We've
I
had
think those are my
Cal
favorite.
Cooper from the UK, who's
Dr. Cal Cooper.
Dr. Cal Cooper, who is a parapsychologist. Pretty much everybody is that we talk to. Lloyd Auerbach, you know, what's his nickname? Is it Professor Paranormal?
Paranormal.
Yeah. So he's got to be up there as far as memorable guests. And I mean, Chad is always great.
Chad Lewis, yeah.
If there's anybody who has enthusiasm for topics, it is Chad Lewis. When I'm editing, I have to edit, like take Chad's enthusiasm down a notch, if you know what I mean. It's just like, holy smokes, that guy is a really happy guy.
But he's like he's the Steve Irwin of this subject matter, right? Like he just gets in there and it's so lively, and I love that too because I mean I feel that same passion about this. So I love it when we have people on that are just as excited as we are about the bigness of life and consciousness and all of those things, because I don't think you can get into this truly and not be that excited about it on some level, you know?
Awesome. So we have a few listeners on YouTube as well. We have Pamela S., who says good evening, and then Ghost or Weird says good evening as well. Pamela S. says, I subscribed tonight. I found you over on Facebook. Well, thank you, Pamela.
Excellent.
That's great.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So, Mike, okay, so you've asked me. So, what about you? Who's your favorite that we
Well,
know?
I just said, you know.
Those are your favorite. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you
sure.
were just commenting.
Well, yeah, I'm commenting by letting you know. I mean, those are I wouldn't say they're my favorite, but they're my most memorable at times. And, you know, I've been a little starstruck with Professor Paranormal, of course, because, you know, he was on that amazing show many moons ago, which was...
Yes. And, well, Sightings.
Yes, exactly.
And, yeah, Sightings and a good number of others as well. I mean, he's been kind of the anchor for so many.
So, which topics that you've covered feel like they could be their own shows? So, if we just did a podcast on one particular topic, what would it be? I would say cryptids. We could do a whole show on just cryptids alone.
I agree. I think cryptids and oh gosh, I would say the overarching subject of consciousness, I think, are the two. Cryptids for sure, because one of the things too about the cryptozoology side of this is that there's new experiences and I think more revelations coming out quicker about some of the cryptid stuff than some of the other subject matters, like you know, and it's so, everybody's experience with them is so unique. I think it's just a really expanding field so quickly.
So our friend LJ says favorite cryptids.
Dogman for me.
Dogman for you?
Yeah.
Honestly, now that I'm kind of really getting into things, it used to be Bigfoot. I used to be a strictly Sasquatch guy, but now I kind of am leaning more toward the Mothman and a little bit of the Flatwoods Monster, because those are some interesting, weird kind of cases. And if you want to read a great book, John A. Keel wrote The Mothman Prophecies. Don't watch that movie, by the way, because it's awful. Even though, you know, John Keel said he enjoyed that movie, I'm sure he said that because it makes him money if people watch, because he's not around anymore. He might still be around here somewhere, but he's not on this plane in particular. So yeah, I'd say Mothman.
I don't even know if those would be considered cryptids, like that. And there's the big debate in the field right now is what is a cryptid? Like I know, you know, some of our past guests like Ken Gerhard and you know, people like that, like always classify cryptids as something that's like a physical animal that you can go and study, and that these guys kind of fall into the category of the more spiritual side of things. So I don't even know if it would be like considered a maybe, like, I don't know, maybe we need to answer better.
Yeah,
because,
maybe we need to look into that a little more deeply.
Yeah, maybe we need to answer a little bit better. So, like, I mean, how, and again, it comes back to the question that we addressed this past month on the podcast, which
We
was,
talked about Bigfoot a lot.
and
Yeah.
and the idea that these things, that there is really no physical versus non-physical, that it's something else. It's there isn't that dividing line, that we are on this continuum of physical and non-physical wherever we sit, including ourselves. So, is that even a category?
Right.
Can you lump them in? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to lump them in?
Do you want to? Yeah, well, I think it really does put limits on physical nature. I think that's one thing that those types of labels and those arguments end up doing in this community is, people are so hell-bent on sticking a label on it because it makes this world easier to understand when we label stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, if it is that sticking a limitation on ourselves, on what we're observing, all of that. I kind of think it is.
So Ghost or Weird says sightings and late night Art Bell really got me into the paranormal. I would say that Art Bell played a big part in my later interest. I mean, I was in my mid-20s when I started listening, early 20s when I started listening to Art Bell, and I was driving security, beep beep, at night, driving a security car and listening to Art Bell from Pahrump, Nevada. This is Art Bell from my double wide, that kind of thing. And heard all kinds of crazy stuff that I probably never would have heard of before, like Mel's Hole in Washington, D.C.
Right.
That is a story that I want to go and look for Mel's Hole. There's,
Yeah.
I want to look into Mel's Hole.
This is called Uncensored. This is...
I want to look into Mel's hole.
Folks.
I don't know who Mel is, but apparently he's got a hole that's worth looking at. So people are throwing I think it was like refrigerators and old cars and all that kind of stuff into it. And it would just disappear. Mel's got a big hole.
And when you find it, you make sure you get those photographs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think those places, like people like that, there are these sort of pivotal people within the world that kind of, influence how we move forward. When I wrote my book, The Gift of Instinct, that's really what I wanted to premise the book on, is that we stand on the shoulders of giants throughout history in regards to
and both of us have to, because we're rather short. So
we do. We're a little bit, we're vertically challenged.
Vertically challenged people.
Come on now.
Yeah. But all right. So Ghost or Weird says their favorite cryptid is Chupacabra. That's one we haven't covered on the show yet. We haven't
not covered.
We haven't looked into the Chupacabra, and I think that we could definitely do something on that. I wish we had the money to go, let's go to Mexico and look at the Chupacabra, look into the Chupacabra and figure out what that thing is. Yeah, it's probably just a rabid Chihuahua.
Well, I've had some colleagues go down and do it. Like Ken Gerhardt, he's been down a good number of times looking into Chupacabra and whatnot. And what's been really interesting over the last number of years is that they've identified this brand new, basically this new species, and it's this very strange looking hairless dog type creature with these strange kind of nodules on its butt, and it's got stunning blue eyes, like the bluest of blue. And for the longest time they thought it was like a dog with mange, like that somebody was seeing this mangy dog, but it's got a very strange structure. Like its back legs are longer than its front legs, like it's very odd. And now they have it stuffed in museums and things like that, because they're finding them all over the place. But there was people that have come forward and said, this is what people have been mistaking for the Chupacabra. Now, the problem with the Chupacabra is it's got 10 different descriptions.
Right.
So you've got the people that see, this sort of alien-looking thing with spikes on its back, and then you've got people that are seeing this thing and calling it a Chupacabra. So I don't know. It's all over the board. But it was interesting that kind of a new discovery came from that they found this critter.
Well, a lot of times this, especially cryptid stuff, is all over the map.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I doing? Giving a thumbs up. Apparently, my camera thinks I'm giving
like
a
yourself.
thumbs. I don't like myself that much. But there's some interesting things that we have yet to look at. But I mean, we talk about it a lot on the show, how things like people are seeing something when they see a UFO, when they see a cryptid, when they see a ghost, when they have a poltergeist encounter, something is happening. And I don't, the skeptics will say everybody's lying. The really hardcore skeptics will say everyone's lying. But I can say, hey, I've seen some stuff that is really weird and interesting in my life. I mean, for instance, my cat Donner passed away. And when Donner passed away, I was heartbroken. Like so sad. And funnily enough, about a week after, he just started showing up in my apartment. I didn't have any cats at the time. And he just started showing up. I would see a tail go around a corner. It was like weird things. And is it me wanting to see Donner so badly that my consciousness is creating Donner, like an image of Donner in my brain? Is it a projection of what's going on in my brain? Or is it something else? Or is it a bit of both? What is that kind of stuff? And we find pretty much every show that we talk about, we end up down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's something is happening. It's like people saying UFOs aren't real. They are real. There is such a thing as an unidentified flying object. It's what they are that we can't agree on. Is it a light? Is it a bug that is reflecting? Is it a bunch of birds? What is it that we're looking at? Is it a balloon like this dumb jellyfish thing that that those guys posted? I don't know. Like the jellyfish, I'm not buying it. It kind of looks like the drone from Empire Strikes Back. It's like,
absolutely.
What? Anyway, but it's something. And, things that aren't explained right now are explainable at some point, will become explainable at some point.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's interesting is that I find the more people get ready, the more we are shown, so to speak.
Sure.
I've always found that within studies in parapsychology and just in field work that I've done over the years, my own experience is that you see what you're ready for. And we can see this even back within, studies going back to the old Gansfeld experiments, where people who walked into a Gansfeld experiment, which is the old test that a lot of people will remember seeing in movies and things like that, where you've got the ping pong balls over your eyes and you're in another room and you've got somebody who's called a sender in the other room who's thinking about an image and sending the image to the receiver who's got the ping pong balls over their eyes. And they're meditating and they're supposed to pick up the image. And what's interesting about that is that the people who went into the test and just weren't ready for it, either didn't believe it, thought it was silly, was just, or kind of poo-pooing it, maybe not so open-minded, didn't do well statistically on those tests. They just didn't do well. And then yet you have the people that are more open-minded that were, getting hits left, right, and center, and were receiving things, and it was pretty cool. But I think is kind of a microcosm for what is happening, if that makes sense. Where it's like, if you're not ready, it's like you're not going to receive it. Like you're not going to receive it. And we even have that with information. Right? Like if you try to argue with somebody who's got confirmation bias, and they're not ready to hear it, they're just going to dig their damn heels in. They're not going to see it. So I kind of feel like that might be what's happening a lot of the times with paranormal stuff that's going on.
Well, I immediately when you started talking about this stuff, I started to think about Grant Heslov's book, The Men Who Stare at Goats. And it was also a movie with Brad Pitt and
it was a great movie. Yeah.
And George Clooney.
Yeah.
But that's what that's about too. I mean, the US government, and this isn't conspiracy, this is stuff that actually happened, and the Canadian government have done a lot of remote viewing and those kind of experiments to try and see if it's possible, number one, it would be quite a thing to weaponize, really. Um, and if it is possible, like, what is it? What's happening? How is that? How are some people more sensitive to those things? Because, there are people who appear to be able to do those things, and, not just like take a wild guess, like I'm looking at a blue painting of a little ship on the sea with a doggy turned that way. It's more to it. Like they're able to describe, this is the room that is in, and this is the position that the person is sitting in, and blah blah blah. And to me, that's like, what? How is that like a thing? And what? How can I do that? No, I tried doing that stuff with some nefarious chemicals.
Right.
But I also, I've also done a bit of lucid dreaming stuff, and I've attempted astral travel. Like, I tried to do that, but I get too scared. I feel myself, something happening, and then I get too scared, and I'm right back, boom, right back in my body again.
Well,
So,
I mean, we've had guests on that work for the Monroe Institute, for instance, right? Who they teach this to people. You can go and learn this stuff. Like when we had on, Alan Evans, who's the current president of Monroe Institute, and we've had on Joe Gallenberger, who teaches workshops. Dr. Joe Gallenberger, who teaches workshops.
he was fascinating. Like, and this is the thing, like every person you bring up, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was so fun.
Yeah. And I mean, and Joe Gallenberger's episode, you guys, if you have not heard it, it's absolutely fascinating. He taught himself how to change the odds of everything from what he was seeing on a random screen to now
His book's called Liquid Luck, right?
Liquid Luck, yeah. And he teaches this to people in Vegas to change the odds using their mind in like poker games and like tables and all that stuff. It's amazing. And like he's got the results to back it up. And he used himself as a guinea pig. He was the one that he started with himself, and now he teaches other people. But I mean, it's amazing. And the the research that's out there now, I mean, it's pretty hard to refute at this point.
So I didn't ask you, how long do you want to do this thing? we've
Run an hour.
About an hour? Okay. All right. That sounds good. My poor little brain is just like, oh, are we going to do this all night long?
All night, Mike. All night.
Oh, no. Oh, well. But yeah, there's so many different aspects. And I guess that's why we called it Supernatural Circumstances, because that's what we're digging into. Because I think there's so many different avenues to travel down.
Yeah.
And, I wish we could focus a little more. I wish we had a better focus. But, I mean, our focus seems to be becoming more and more clear. And we talked about it a bit before we went live here, about how it's kind of the spiritual, psychological consciousness stuff that we really need to focus on. And I think when we bring a guest, let's talk about that kind of thing moving forward. Like, oh, okay, so here's what you saw. What was it? Like, this is here's the circumstances of what you saw. But what's the supernatural part?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of it, and it doesn't. I think too, this is a mistake I think a lot of people make, is that they kind of lump this stuff into, it has to be about a ghost. It has to be about something very stereotypical as what we consider paranormal. But there's a lot of different circumstances within the world, within people's experiences, that aren't the stereotypical, oh, I saw, an apparition of somebody, or I saw a Bigfoot or something like that. There's a lot of nuances with this. Like, for example, like stuff we talk about, Mike, like these synchronicities that are happening, the Mandela effect that shows up. I had a weird experience with that, by the way, the other day. It was pretty strange.
Dig into that. Let's talk about it.
I will. So just to finish this thought, though, I think there's nuances like within the world, like that people are observing and having happen,
Mm-hmm.
that when they have that connection with their inner being, sort of their inner self, through whatever it is, whether it be like meditation or, you know, just being connected with nature, or, you know, whatever it is for you, I think that interconnectedness is kind of what we always end up talking about.
Yep.
So yeah, so this weird story. Okay, so I distinctly remember, it was about, I would say, a year ago, if not more than a year ago. I distinctly remember having a conversation with a few colleagues of mine that Robert Bigelow, who used to be the owner of Skinwalker Ranch before
Mm-hmm.
he sold it to Brandon Frugal, that after he put together this amazing contest, it was for $1 million, for essays and proposals about experiments and things like that regarding, is there life after death. I distinctly remember having a conversation with a couple of colleagues that he had passed away.
Hmm.
And I remember it very clearly. Like, we were talking about how, you know, now he knows what's on the other side and like all of that kind of a thing. So I'm on the phone with a friend of mine from LA last week, and we're talking about this, and we're talking about just the sort of these millionaire think tanks and stuff that come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling him about what I remember, and he was like, "But Robert Bigelow's still alive."
Oh boy.
And I was like, "I don't think so." I was like, I distinctly remember having this conversation with a couple of colleagues. I think Cal Cooper was one of them. And he's like, "No, I'm positive. Like, he's still alive." So we start digging into it. And yeah, lo and behold, he's still alive. God bless him. But what's very strange is that on Reddit, there was a whole thread of people remembering the same thing. They all remembered this guy passing away. So it was very odd. Like, it was very, because I distinctly remember having this conversation and thinking like, "Oh man, what timing that this, you know, that this has happened." So it was very interesting. But
For
yeah,
those of you who don't know, some people might be new to Skinwalker Ranch. It's a formerly known as the Sherman Ranch, and it's a property approximately 512 acres located in Ballard, Utah, that's reputed to be the site of paranormal and UFO-related activities. There's a podcast, there's
TV show.
TV shows, all that kind of stuff. And so Robert Bigelow is an interesting cat because he
Yes.
owns Budget Suites of America, and he's the founder of Bigelow Aerospace. And he is big into unidentified flying objects, or UAP, which is unidentified aerial phenomenon. So he's really, really into them. I guess growing up where he did in Nevada, that's kind of his jam. But yeah, like you sent me a link today about an afterlife study that a bunch of people sent essays in for. That I've been reading a few of them, and they're just mind blowing.
Yeah,
Just
some of the best, some of the
yeah,
best minds in the world. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
a couple people who we've tangentially know, and you know, so it's really fascinating that, oh, I know that name, I recognize that name, like Helena Wabe from
She's been on the
Ions.
show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she's involved with the Ions Institute, and you want to tell people what that is,
Yeah,
Morgan?
absolutely. So if you guys want to check this out after the show, the Institute of Noetic Sciences
Mm-hmm.
is an absolutely fascinating organization. They study this subject matter on the highest academic level possible. They have got experiments in regards to quantum effects. They've looked into life after death and survival after death, and mainly how we interact with it. So that's, to me, what makes Ions really special, is the fact that they not only look at this thing as something that maybe happens around us, but how do we interact with it, mind to the rest of the world.
Right.
You know, so that is, to me, it's really cool. Like Dr. Dean Radin, he's a part of it, who we've also had on the show before, talking about the idea that we create and manifest our reality, that our perception is dictated by how we think, and how we feel, and he's got the evidence to back that up. So it's yeah. So at Institute of Noetic Sciences, They do all that stuff. It's like the science behind manifestation.
So I'm posting some links in the YouTube comments section. Noetic.org is the IONS website. And I've just posted a thing, the Wikipedia for Robert Bigelow. But what I find fascinating about ions is the origin story of ions, noetic.org. When Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell viewed Earth from space, he was struck by a profound sense of universal connectedness, and the experience was so transformative, it shaped his life's work to bridge the power of science with this deep internal knowing and illuminate the fullness of human potential. So it was an astronaut looking down on us who came up with the idea of, there is something bigger at work here, and I am having a bit of a revelation while I'm peering at everybody who's ever lived and died on Earth.
Yeah.
You know, wow, it's just mind-blowing that, you know, this was the realm of the crazy person for a long time. For a long time, this was the realm of people out of their trees, who were, you know, vampires are real, and maybe they are, yeah. But it was like, I know that this is real. I know this is this, and I know this is that. Maybe, but something is happening. And so that's what all these great minds all around the world are now looking into. There is something going on. There is something other than this physical world that we entertain, that we are a part of. I mean, Einstein, you know, the father of quantum science, quantum physics, you know, yeah, there's way more than meets the eye, way more.
No, there is. And yeah, I'm just reading one of our questions here, and it kind of blends into what we're talking about, which is, which topics still baffle you out of
all of them?
All of them. All of them. There isn't just one. Every single one of them. It's like, just when you think you know enough, something cracks, and you're like, and I'm out. I have no idea. I have learned to test my consequential knowledge. I have learned, because I find that every time that I think that I've got a grasp on whatever something is, some event comes to challenge that. And I think that's part, not only is it part of this journey, and I you know, I see a lot of people online arguing about, you know, oh, it's this phenomenon or that phenomenon, or, you know, one of the big ones right now is there's a phenomenon in one of the native cultures that people are saying, well, that's only belongs to this culture and it's nowhere else. And it's like, once you get into this phenomenon and this subject matter in general, you realize that everybody's having this universal experience.
Right.
Like, it's not contained to this culture or that culture or something. Everybody's got a version of it. They might call it something else, but everyone's got a version. Like, I used to teach in post-secondary for a while, both in the psychology and the social work programs here in Edmonton, and I was talking parapsychology. I was teaching parapsychology, and it was so interesting because my classes were always a blend of different cultures. Like, I had people from like Native American to Haiti to, like, they'd come in from all over, and they, you know, I would talk about the phenomena and we'd be discussing it, because mainly what I was there for was to talk about belief systems and to get them to understand that you're going to encounter a lot of belief systems and here's how you got to deal with it.
Sure.
But, you know, I would describe a phenomenon, and, you know, you'd have somebody at one end of the room go, oh, I know what that is. That's a curse from whatever. And then on the other hand, you'd say, no, you'd hear, no, that's not what that is. You're wrong. You know, it's this phenomenon from my people, from my culture. But it's like every single person was describing the same thing, you know, and the stories around it were different, but the phenomenon itself was the same. So it's like something's going on, and it's not, you know, individualized to certain groups, in my experience.
So Jenna Calloway in the Yumber Yard, in the Dark Poutine Yumber Yard, where it's also this is also streaming, she says, Skinwalker Ranch, thanks for another rabbit hole to go down. And it definitely is. It
It
is
is.
the craziest place. When, I've been sort of in that area before, they won't let you onto the property. So,
No, it's private.
yeah, I really would like to, if I can, someday walk around Skinwalker Ranch just to say I've been there. Because, Matthew and I went to Area 51.
You did.
We did.
And have the photos to prove it.
We have the photos to prove it. And so we drove up to the back gate of Area 51, just outside of Rachel, Nevada. And Matthew stood by the car, probably about 50 to 75 meters away from the gate. And he's like, "Oh, don't go up there." And I was like, "Why?" He said, "They'll shoot you or something. You'll get arrested." And I was just like, "Oh, well, whatever." So I just walked right up to the sign that actually said, "Don't take pictures here." And I took a selfie of myself standing at the gate of Area 51. And then they put the siren on, So they blasted the siren at me, and I thought better of my endeavors and walked back toward the car. And Matthew's like, "Let's get out of here." He was so terrified. It made me jump though when I heard the siren. It's like,
For me, the alien thing, I think is the scariest part of paranormal phenomena. To me, it's sort of the government alien thing. I think that's pretty creepy.
well, a lot of what we're hearing right now is that if disclosure happens, I don't know if this is a fact, but this is what I'm hearing from different places. If disclosure happens, it will throw a wrench into religion, into our beliefs, into our,
Sure.
Yeah. And it's not just because this is a creature from another planet. It may not even be. They may be like interdimensional weirdos who are here with us all the time.
Yeah.
And messing with us,
Yeah.
Oh boy. And
Yeah,
so I do find it scary too. I just reread Communion. And the way I read it this time, I read it as a book before, but I did the audio book this time, and listening to Whitley Strieber talk about his experiences and hearing the emotion in his voice and how terrified he got. I mean, I've heard the tapes of his recordings from, years and years ago when he went through the hypnosis to sort of uncover these things. And he sounded really, really terrified.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like I've talked about it a few times on the show. What is it, something to be afraid of, or is it something to embrace? Like, do we have to be afraid of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to be afraid of anything really. I think it's how we are interpreting, what it is. Because really, when you get down to the spiritual nitty gritty of it, nothing is good or bad, right? It's what we assign to the situation. Everything just is what it is. It just is, and then we assign to it whether it's terrible or good or whatever. But I think, I think with this particular subject, I think what makes it so tricky is that before, like even 15 years ago, I think the majority of people were thinking, oh, it's like the little grays that are going to come down and we're going to shake their hand, and then but now
Close encounters kind of thing.
very close encounters. But I think now what we're starting to realize, especially through some of the encounters we've talked about on the show, like through Sasquatch or Dogman or aliens or whatever, we're starting to realize that, wait a minute, this is way more complex than what we just originally thought it was. And I think the big challenge for people going forward, and that the paradigm that's really going to make their brains pop, is whether or not they are going to be able to embrace something that they're not absolutely clinging to in confirmation bias.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think you're going to get two groups of people. You're going to get the people that are like, okay, I'm just going to go with the flow. I don't get it, but I'm going to go with the flow. And then you're going to get the people that are going to dig their absolute heels in and be like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. And they're going to go right backwards the other way. That's my prediction.
I've seen a lot of memes about what Ghost or Weird says here. uh, in the YouTube chat. I would avoid this planet if I was an alien. Is like, I see that as a meme sometimes. The aliens like locking their doors as they go they go past
Yeah.
Earth. It's like, oh no, you don't want anything to do with them. But yeah, I don't know. I would love it if some aliens just sort of, especially right now with the way the world is, like things have gone for a poo. Like they really have gone for a bit of a poo.
True.
And it would be sort of nice for somebody to pop by and say, hey, you know what? This stuff that you're all worried about all the time doesn't really matter. Oh, and you want to be able to travel from place to place like instantaneously? Here's the technology to do that. So there's no more being squished in a plane like when I went to LA the other day. It was like, I don't know you. But but it was, no more of that. You just like, oh, okay, I want to go to this place. Boop, near there. That would be so neat. That would be so neat.
It would be amazing, but again, I think it comes back to, we'll get what we're ready to receive, and the more
Well, I'm
things,
ready to receive $1 million in a green card. That's what I'm I'm ready to receive.
yeah, well, that would be nice.
That would
But
be nice.
that
I
would
want
be
to move
nice.
to LA. I really
You?
do. I had such a good time there, and the food is good, and the sunshine. Oh my gosh, did it ever perk me up? Like I'm one who suffers from seasonal affective disorder, so being out in the sunshine and getting some exercise, I feel pretty energized. So I'm going to try to go south every year at least
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in California over the years, and and experienced some pretty cool haunted places as well. I've been to the Queen Mary, and I've been to there's a really neat place in Palos Verdes, which is beautiful. I don't even know it's there anymore because most of it is burned to the ground, unfortunately. But it was there. It's called the Glass Chapel, and it's known as Wayfarer's Chapel, but it's the Glass Chapel, and it's absolutely stunning. And it's literally a glass cathedral, and
Temporarily closed.
temporary. So it was probably damaged, but the I'm sure somebody out there knows what's going on with it.
Lloyd
But
Wright. So Frank Lloyd Wright's son actually is the designer.
that's correct. Yeah. So it beautiful place. If you guys can imagine like this glass cathedral on a bluff overlooking the ocean with these beautiful flowers, like the biggest flowers you've ever seen, like the size of dinner plates. And the neat story about this place is that there's said to be a spirit caretaker that comes and tends to the flowers and has been seen in the gardens, walking through the gardens and sort of tending to the flowers and stuff like that. And I don't know who he is. I've not heard a story about who he might be, but they've seen him multiple times out there. So there's some really really cool haunted places, and the bluffs in and around that area. There's a haunted lighthouse as well, and there's some pretty neat stuff out there.
So that church is really fascinating. This is the first time I've ever heard of it, and I'm just doing a little bit of a brief overview. And the denomination is Swedenborgian. So do you know who Emanuel Swedenborg is?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so yeah. And he was a fascinating guy who approached this kind of stuff
That's right.
in a more spiritual sense. I guess you would say religion because, he does have a denomination of a religion named after him.
Yeah.
So, but,
But he was involved in this though.
yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, it's a beautiful looking place. I posted a link to the official site for it
It's
in there.
absolutely, it's incredible. It's really incredible. And unfortunately, like I don't like California is not in the best shape it's been for a long time, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think it's got some beautiful areas. Like you go and you visit, and it's just there's some areas there that are just phenomenally stunning that you won't see anywhere else.
Right.
And like Wayfarer's Chapel it was definitely one of them for me. Like I will never ever forget that place.
So I do cemeteries wherever I go because I love the feel of a cemetery. I find them a very peaceful place. They're quiet. They're beautiful.
Yeah. And
Beautiful
you found
places.
some amazing ones when you were in LA.
Yeah, I got to see the Ramones. I got to see Helena Hutchins, who was the director of photography, who was shot by Alec Baldwin recently, accidentally. it was, I saw her, she's right next to Chris Cornell. It's like my brain was just like,
Yeah.
wow. But I went to the Hollywood Hills cemetery, which, Carrie Fisher is in there, Lemmy and Ronnie James Dio, and,
Marty Feldman.
you
Sent
name
that
it.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I get back, and then my dad messages me and says, "Oh yeah, my mom's brother was is buried in the." And it's like, why didn't you tell me this before before I went to Los Angeles? Flew on a plane to go to Los Angeles, and I go to cemeteries. Tell me that I have a great uncle who is now inhabiting a cemetery that I'm probably going to see. Because I would have gone to visit. I
Yeah.
totally would have visited. Hey, this is my great uncle.
Well,
So,
there's that being said, with all the places that we've gone,
mhm.
one of the other questions that were sent in was, has there been any episode that has seriously given you the major creeps or struggled to manage the topic because of personally being uncomfortable about it?
Mhm.
Have you had that? I think maybe the alien one for you, maybe.
Yeah, there was one where we were talking to John Yost, who's just passed away,
Yeah.
and he had cancer, so he's just passed away. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
It was recent.
Yeah, and when we were talking to him and to Dean Bertram, both of those guys, um, I had an experience when I was a little kid, and I saw what I thought was something with Spider-Man eyes at the end of the bed. Standing beside me, sleeping over at a buddy's place when I was like 7 or 8, and I saw this Spider-Man eyes thing, and I'm feeling a little uptight talking about it now, but it didn't bother me at the time, But talking about it the way I was in the context that I was with those guys, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah. What if
Like,
this was real? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what did I see? Potentially, what did I see? And yes, so that is definitely the one for me. Like this whole idea that, here I saw this thing, and then I wake up hours later and the sun's up. It was like instantaneous.
Yeah.
I saw this thing, and then I'm waking up. So what happened in the meantime, I have no idea. Did I just sleep?
Yeah.
Or what happened? I'm really hoping that I slept.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping like that's the case.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I ever want to go and get my memories
Hypnosis or
pulled out of
something.
me,
Yeah.
hypnotized and that kind of stuff. I don't know if I could. I want to put myself in that position because I struggle with hypnosis as a tool in that regard. I've read Johnny Mac's books, and I read a book about him just recently called The Believer, and it's excellent. The author's name is Blumenthal, but Johnny Mac was a Harvard-trained scientist, psychologist, psychiatrist, who essentially ended up regressing people to memories, hypnotizing them to remember alleged abductions and all of that kind of stuff. Like one of his books is just called Abduction. And they are terrifying. These experiences that these people had, that they relate to him, whether or not it's a psychological thing or a real physical being picked up and going somewhere, I don't know. But it is something that is so real to them, and it's fascinating how a lot of the features are the same throughout. And I think that was what he was driving at. It's like, why are we all having the same experience?
Yeah.
Like, why did I have the Spider-Man eyes experience when I was 7? I had
with no
never seen
context.
a gray. I
Yeah,
had
exactly.
I had never seen any of that kind of thing until I was much older, and
Yeah.
that's what I had. I remember that like it was yesterday. I can close my eyes and see it now, and it scares the shit out of me now.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what was it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it makes you wonder, especially when you've got a situation where there is no context. I think that to me is what makes that experience so interesting, is the fact that, you didn't have a fascination with UFOs or aliens as a kid, and you weren't seeing that imagery and whatnot, and that still
I
seems to
had
be
as
what,
much fascination with it as any kid did.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't an obsession or anything like that. I was actually obsessed with Bigfoot, is what I was obsessed with. I had this yellow book that I rebought off eBay because my mom threw my books away when I went to university at some point. And, so I rebought. It's just called Sasquatch, and it's got like a yellow cover and the Patterson Gimlin film stuff
Right.
on the front
Yeah.
cover. And so yeah, that's what I was upset. That and mummies. I loved mummies and
That's interesting.
ancient Egypt and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, like I had no, UFOs. Sure, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's like, ooh,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it's been for me. Like I don't get the, like, full disclosure, I don't get the creeps very much. Like I just don't. I don't know whether it's because I've just been doing this too long, or I've seen
are
too
you
much,
just
or
a creepy? Maybe you're
I'm
the creep,
maybe I'm
Morgan.
the creep. I don't know, man. Like I'm just freaky. I don't know, but like I don't. It takes a lot for me to be in a situation where I get that anymore.
Hmm.
And I think part of it's because I turn on my investigator's brain, and my investigator's brain is like, paying attention to a bunch of different factors. But I don't know. I can be in a situation where I can feel fear, but I can remove myself from it enough that it doesn't take over. And I think that's just a product of a lot of years of meditation. But yeah, like, so I can't say I've been creeped out per se by any episode we've done, but I mean, I've definitely had instances in my paranormal research career
Hmm.
where there's been some moments of, like, what am I seeing? And one of them, which I've talked about a little bit in the show before, which was my dogman experiences, and seeing some of those has mind blowing. Um, and there's been definitely moments out in the field in situations like that where it's not so much of a creeped out feeling, but more of a this is a wild being feeling.
Hmm.
And just in the same way that you kind of have that feeling if you were walking in the woods and you came across a grizzly, and you kind of have that moment of okay, I'm just gonna back away, you're being respectful, you're like, I've definitely had a number of those moments. um but yeah, not like the I'm trying to think if I've had anything that's been like super 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 creepy. Probably, I mean, I guess if I had to, like, throw something into that category, I mean, there's definitely been some hauntings that I've experienced over the years where I've gone, okay, whatever is here isn't good.
Hmm.
And you get that feeling of, okay, it's time to leave. Like, you've overstayed your welcome. It's time.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go. So I've had that a few months, but I don't know if I'd classify it as being creeped out.
Well, yeah, just this weekend I had a bit of an experience like that. So, um, a Dark Poutine listener and a friend of hers, so Cheryl and Haley, took me around to a bunch of the true crime sites around Los Angeles. So we went to um, the Hillside Stranglers upholstery shop, for example.
Oh
We
boy.
went to Cielo Drive, where Sharon Tate was murdered. We went to the La Bianca house, but there was one in particular that we went to, the Los Feliz murder mansion. And we could have gotten out of the car and all that kind of stuff, but I could not bring myself to get out of the car. And Cheryl had warned me, saying, like, I've been there before and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I just don't like this place. And so this place, essentially, this doctor in Los Feliz in December 6th, 1959, and this place has actually been pretty much empty ever since. So it's this beautiful mansion,
There's a red
in
flag.
LA, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
his name was Dr. Harold Perelson, and he struck his wife to death with a hammer, severely beat his 18-year-old daughter, and then ended his own life using a concoction of water acid and tranquilizer pills.
Oh
His
my
daughter got
God.
away and like ran to a neighbor and said, "Help,"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But so I started to feel my throat closing up. Like I didn't feel very good at all. My throat started closing up. And so as we were driving away, I asked Cheryl, I said, because I hadn't looked into this. I didn't know anything about it. She just said, "We need to go there. Do you know anything about it?" I was like, "No."
Sure.
And so we went there, and driving away, I felt my throat closing up. Like, what the hell is that? And I asked her, what did the guy die of? Because she told me about him beating his wife to death. And she said, he poisoned himself with acid and poison. And it was like, oh my God, you know?
Could be related. Yeah.
And then I said, so what did you feel when you were there? And she said, both the girls who were there said, we felt like we were being hit. So, yeah, it's like, and they got headaches out of it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Like, you know, is it the energy that's left behind? I'm not saying that, you know, he was there. But is there some, because honestly, I had no idea that that's what happened there.
And I honestly think a lot of these places, like, and just having been to hundreds of places like this over the career, but there's something I think intuitively that when you're connected with this stuff, there's something intuitively that you know. And I think it goes, I don't think it's some like sort of crazy woo-woo thing either. I think this is something very instinctual. You look at, I always use the analogy of, you know, the lion in the grass and the antelope that are, you know, wandering around Africa. And there'd be a whole lot more dead antelope if it wasn't for the fact that they had that sixth sense of like, wait a minute, something's off. And that humans are one of the only species, I think we are the only species, that actually ignores it. We're the only ones that will talk ourselves right out of a dangerous situation. Like, you know, we'll get off the elevator in the dark parking lot and go, you know, oh, we don't have any reason to be scared. We're being silly. And then it turns out there's somebody in the parking lot trying to mug someone.
Right.
You know, but we're the only species that really talks ourselves out of it. And like, we don't listen to that. And I think there's this stuff leaves imprints. I think this stuff there when there's been danger or there is danger, I think we are hardwired to know, and we just as a species we've learned to just nope, you have to be nice, and if you're experiencing any sort of intuition then you're just being silly. And you know, and I just don't think that's true. I think we are hardwired. There was a really brilliant book that was written a good number of years ago now called The Gift of Fear by a fellow by the name of Gavin de Becker.
Gavin de Becker, yeah.
Gavin de Becker. And that's what the book was about. It was about this hardwired fear that we have. And I wrote about it in my book, The Gift of Instinct, is that we have these sort of two different types of fear, which is the fear that we have learned, which is like, you know, a phobia passed down by a parent or something like that.
Sure,
you know,
or you
like
put your hand on a hot iron kind of thing.
Yeah, or something that you've kind of learned. But then there's a different type of fear that is not coming from a learned place. It's something a little bit deeper, and it's something a little more connected, where the fear that you've learned might be because of a story you're telling yourself. But then there's the type of fear that's coming from instinct. And that instinctual fear, I believe, that's guidance. That's a different category.
Cool. Well, this is a good place to end this, I think.
I think so too. This is awesome.
Yeah, I think we had a good time. Thank you for joining us here on Unexplained and Uncensored, the Supernatural Circumstances podcast. And we will get this moved over to the Supernatural Circumstances podcast YouTube. We were too new. The YouTube channel was too new, so we couldn't go live. Poor Morgan was so frustrated.
We'll get better at this, I swear.
All right. Well, until next time, folks, take care.
Take care. And remember, the line between the natural and the supernatural is often a thin one. Go subscribe to Supernatural Circumstances podcast, and we will see you next month, the last Wednesday of every month, for this,
Okay.
Unexplained and Uncensored.
There
Bye,
you go.
guys.
Bye-bye.